The Play Absolutely podcast with Dr. Sue Jennings and Dr. Andy Hickson. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Play Absolutely podcast. Hi Sue, how you doing?
Hi, Andy. Fine. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to be back. And weather's improved. The the emotions, the feelings are all much higher than they were sort of during this extremely wet weather. Hasn't completely stopped raining here, but it's a lot warmer, and we've had a bit of sunshine. So what's it like?
We've been having Chinese New Year to celebrate as well, which is a very playful time.
It is, and interestingly, I think this year Chinese New Year and Ramadan are both. They're either starting on the same day or very, very close, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to start this episode with our news stories early. So, play in the news, we'll start. We'll start with that. So, this week's play in the news, we have two news stories for you today. One from the UK and the other one from Iran. Both stories are about investment in children's play spaces. So in Hertfordshire, England, in the UK, Dacorum Borough Council, they've included 2 million of investment in adventure playgrounds in next year's budget. They're linking staffed, structured risk play being treated as preventative infrastructure. Now, this matters because adventure playgrounds are one of the few places where conflict, dominance games and isolation can be intercepted early by skilled adults before it lands as school behaviour. Now, the takeaway from this, in my opinion, is if you want fewer crises in school, fund the places where children can practice freedom with support. Yeah, that's the first news story. The second one comes from the Mehr news agency in Iran, which has a story about New Children's Centre in Tehran, offering creative play, storytelling, and creative drama. Now, this is framed as skill building and child development and shows how Iran is treating play as a method. Creative drama, storytelling, and purposeful games as skill building, not as downtime, as skill building. So that's this week's play in the news. What do you think of those stories?
I think both are extremely important.
Yeah.
And it also, with the story from Iran, it reminds us how often the news is so biased that it doesn't include international positive news, but international negative news. So I'm pleased to see that reported. And adventure playgrounds.
So just on that point, notice I had to dig deep in Iran's news to get that story. It's not written in any place outside of Iran. Yeah.
But it just shows the fact that you had to dig deep, how difficult it is to get hold of positive news from other countries.
It is, yeah, it can be.
But the investment in adventure playgrounds is so positive. Like you, I totally agree. That's where the real social skill learning happens. Because whoever is in charge and supporting and helping and monitoring doesn't interfere unless it gets dangerous. And
absolutely.
I've actually been there where a volunteer has turned up and wanted to help a child do something. And very quietly, the staff member said, just stand back.
Right.
We only step in if something gets totally impossible. The child is discovering. And the interesting thing, it was to do with climbing in and out of a piece of webbing in this adventure playground.
Okay.
That in the end, the child asked their mate to help them. And as the staff pointed out later, that's exactly what needed to happen. But when the volunteer wanted to help them out and lift them up, there was no real learning for the child.
That reminds me exactly like what Vygotsky might have talked about in time of scaffolding, isn't it? But in a
Absolutely.
practical sense rather than a metaphorical sense. Yeah.
Yes, and Vygotsky said true learning takes place when the child has somebody with them who is they only need to be a little bit more skilled, but they can actually help the child to the next step of the scaffold.
Exactly. And of course,
unfortunately, the word scaffolding often gets misrepresented.
Yes. Well, tell about the misrepresentation in a second, but just briefly, those stories are in contrast to the stories last week where the stories were about adventure playgrounds and children's play spaces being reduced in various boroughs and councils in the UK. So yes, I think that's good. Yeah. So sorry, what were you going to say? I interrupted you there.
No, I was just commenting how it's easy to misrepresent scaffolding in terms of these being obligatory steps and making children take them. Whereas the true meaning of scaffolding is you actually scaffold what eventually a child will want to do, and they will have a minimal amount of help for them to get to the next step. We used to work with a diagram, literally drawing a scaffold, a ladder, and going up a ladder was a wolf cub.
Okay.
So in the picture, the wolf cub became the person to help the child to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
But the child helped to design the ladder, what each step should be. So we talked about what they would like to achieve, and they named each step. And then the wolf said things to help them along. So it was quite an interesting experiment where we literally created a picture of a scaffold.
Amazing. I believe that you came across a news story this morning that wasn't included in our Play in the News, which...
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
And this is big news, and it's where play has become political, I'm afraid. It's the government totally revising the budget for special educational needs.
Okay.
And wanting to cut here and cut there, and it's all tied up with claims that autism and ADHD are overdiagnosed, therefore too much money is being spent on special needs education.
Too
the point
much
being, that sort of statement is nonsense. If a child needs some assistance, they need some assistance, whether they've been given a diagnosis or not.
So I thought the news story was a positive one in that there was more funding for people with special educational needs, but it's the opposite.
Well, at the moment, what the statement that was made this morning was that funding is going to be made available for children with serious educational needs. So there's going to be a way of grading them, and some children won't get anything because it's considered mild learning, but other children, then the money will go towards them. So it's still a big argument, and it's really unfortunate that education and learning for children with very genuine needs has become political. Because the political parties are fighting over it.
Right. Is it a way of taking away from one and giving to another? So there's not extra money going in, but there's part of the budget is being taken away from those with what they class as low needs, given to those with much higher needs. So the same pot of money, but they've just redistributing it. Is that right?
But of course, the irony is, if the mild needs have been attended to in time, there wouldn't be serious learning needs. Yeah, we're just not
Well,
good at preventative work, are we?
I gave a talk, keynote presentation at the Music and Drama Expo in London last week,
Hmm.
which went very well. For those people that are interested to see a version, there is a version of it now on the Actionwork YouTube channel. Just search it, and you'll find it's one of the recent uploaded videos. But in terms of special educational needs, one of the things I talked about is that in England, according to the Department for Education statistics, children or young people with special educational needs are 5 times more likely to be permanently excluded from school than those with no identified special educational needs.
That's a very sobering thought, isn't it?
It is. It is. And did you know that there's nearly 1 million suspensions every year in England from secondary school? I think the figure's 955,000 to be exact. It's huge.
Well, you see, the other area, I mean, not just having special support within the school with extra teaching assistants, we've got to think of the PRUs, the pupil referral units. Now,
Yes.
what goes on in many PRUs is a teaching that might be a little bit slower, a bit more supportive. But surely if it's got to the point where a child is being sent to a PRU, they need something like counselling, play therapy. Because what's the point if you're just putting them into a slightly slower learning unit? That doesn't make sense. They might as well, it would be cheaper to keep them in school and have an extra teaching assistant. Because a PRU needs resources, a building. And so. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, structured social theatre.
But there's something else in the news that was actually on Instagram that I want to share, which is really fascinating. They did a big research project. This was reported by an organisation in America called We School.
Yeah, and I've heard of that.
We School spelt with a K. And certainly people involved in any sort of play, I recommend it. Their resources, articles, supplies, and so on. So they reported on this program where they were looking at what happens when mothers read to their babies.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of adults think, well, it's a waste of time till the child is almost reading. But they found that a significant brain change was happening while mothers were reading to babies.
Okay.
And what's more, their capacity to learn to read later was greatly enhanced. So it's not whether or not babies actually understand the words. It's about the modulation of the voice, the pauses, the expressiveness, and so on. All of that is a game changer. So I don't know whether you ever watched Doc Martin, that medical or GP practice based in Cornwall seaside soap.
Okay.
But they had their first baby, Doc Martin and his wife, and people found it very funny when the latest medical journal arrived. So he just sat the baby in the crook of his arm and read this medical journal to the baby, which is absolutely hilarious. But you have to think, well, why not? Now that we've had this additional research. So keep reading, everybody. And maybe start the reading during pregnancy.
Keep reading.
And it doesn't have to be baby books. It can be books you enjoy. Just read them out loud instead of keeping it to yourself.
Yeah. A lot of
So,
people. Well, I think there's two schools of thought, isn't there? Some people absolutely hate reading out loud, and other people can't read without reading out loud. Yeah, strange.
I wonder why people hate reading out loud. Have you thought?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if I think of myself, if I'm reading to myself, then I don't like to read out loud. Maybe it's more work. I think when you read out loud, I might be wrong here, but I feel there's not so much going in because you're doing something else. When you're reading to somebody, it I don't know. Maybe you're focused more on performance rather than actually just enjoying the story. I don't know. Maybe that's an
Because
interesting
one important
bit
thing,
of research.
if you do read out loud,
Hmm.
but if you do read out loud, then you actually slow down, which sometimes is a good thing because it's quite easy to skim read a book, especially a
Of
mystery
course, there's
novel.
skill. There is skill in sight reading, as you know, actors are trained to sight read a script and so on. Because when you're reading, what the brain does, I think, because they're scared of what is coming up unconsciously, is you're not saying the word that you're looking at because you're looking ahead, almost as a protective way. So you know what's coming, so you're not going to embarrass yourself. But what that does is it makes you sort of skip or jump or mispronounce words or forget what you've just read. So the key is essentially is not to be afraid what is coming up, but you just focus on the word that you're speaking. And if you keep going like that, you can pretty much read out loud without making mistakes. Something like that. Anyway, there is something that you brought up last week was play as subversion. Play as subversion. Is that something that you want to try talking about again this week?
Well, it's interesting that play can be used in several negative ways, I think. It can be used to undermine other people.
It can.
It's a way of not taking what they're telling you seriously by play as mockery.
Right.
I think is not a pleasant way to develop social skills.
As opposed to play as mischief, which is different, right?
And you don't always notice the mockery aspect, I think.
Because it can always be masked and hidden in the I was only playing.
I was only playing is such a frequent expression. That's
But
mucking
also,
about.
can it be used, so play as subversion, can it be used as, within the game itself or within the playful activity, you can subvert the rules of the game
Oh, indeed.
as another playful way of
Yes,
playing?
yes, yes. It becomes players' protest, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you think
Any
when
examples?
the development with martial arts, that when poor people weren't allowed weapons, they developed a system they could use their limbs as weapons very successfully in many instances.
Yeah, you've broken up here. I'm not sure of the internet connection. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're speaking right now, but the internet seems to have
A life of its own.
subverted the
Yes,
you were
it's
speaking.
dancing in and out.
Okay, okay.
But
Yeah, I
so
think that was. I'm not. No, carry on. Carry on.
No, I was going to say, Andy, I think what we're discovering in these podcasts is the huge myriad of different ways of playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't said before the phrase play as protest, but then you think about it, of how people have challenged governments by performing something in the street.
Clowning.
It might be street
Political
theatre.
clowning.
Yeah, all sorts of protests are actual playful performances. A lot recently has been enacted on the streets. I mean, street theatre surely started with people protesting.
Mm. Yes, I think so.
And have you heard the term invisible play?
Well, I know invisible theatre, which is one of Augusta Boal's techniques, of course, in the theatre of the oppressed. But what is invisible play?
Well, I had some students who'd heard about invisible play and asked me if they could test it.
Ah,
So they just dispersed into the local community
right.
and did something playful, but pretended it was real.
Okay.
So
Sounds
one
like
student,
invisible theatre.
so it's probably very, very similar.
Mm.
But one person went into a garden centre and started trying on plant pots as hats,
Okay.
keeping an absolutely straight face and trying on different sizes and too low covering their eyes and tiny ones that perched on the top. And the assistant watched this and obviously just didn't know what to do.
Right.
So after a good few minutes, she looked either side and then she went, "There's plant pots, you idiot." So, but the student carried on until he found one that he liked and said thank you and paid for it, said, and put it on and walked out of the garden centre with it on his head. Tell me about Boal's invisible theatre.
So, well, invisible theatre, again, there's some similarities in that a group would design a piece of theatre to be performed in public, but you don't tell the public that it's a piece of theatre. So the anybody that's watching, and could be performed in a supermarket, in a high street. I mean, anywhere that's public where there's people, you perform it, but it's performed as if it's real life.
Mm.
And you don't tell people that it's theatre, so that when the performance ends, however it ends, and the actors have drifted off, what's left is the people that watch it then have had an experience, and they reflect on that experience themselves. They talk about it amongst themselves, and they go home and they talk to their families or their partners. Oh, do you know what happened today in the supermarket? So it's raising discussion points about something that's, that's of interest or that's important, or in this sense, they're highlighting oppression that exists in society. So, I mean, there's plenty of examples. One example that Boal gave, a simple piece of theatre where you've got a man and a woman, and it could be the woman has like a dog chain and collar on the man, and is walking him round the supermarket buying stuff as if it's real, and all the shoppers and the people at the cash desk witnessing it, and you can hear them chatting amongst themselves, making comments to the actors that they don't know are actors, and eventually they leave. But the people that are left behind, the audience members, they're left with this impression, and it's a discussion point, about what they've seen, and they will carry this on. So it's raising discussion a lot of the time within a community, within families, within friends, and so on. But yes, I mean, I've done invisible theatre many times. It can be extremely powerful. And the reason that we know a lot of the comments and so on is that much of the invisible theatre that we have run, and I've run it in Japan, I've run it in China, I've run it in London, particularly. We've done a lot of work, invisible theatre work in London. We have filmed it subvertively as well, so without people knowing. So we've been able to then afterwards, as a group, sort of look back through the video and reflect on, the comments and the interactions that members of the public have done and contributed.
But do the members of the public ever find out that it was actors?
No. Well, Bilal would always say that you should never reveal that it was a piece of theatre, because you will lose the impact. And if people then find out afterwards that it was theatre, people will feel cheated, and it would have the opposite effect of what they wanted. So you always keep the idea that it was real life.
There was an interesting example, I don't know if you heard about it, of the opposite happening, of a piece of filming that was one of the Mike Leigh films.
Okay.
And there was a man and a woman in the back of a taxi, and the man was trying to molest the woman for this film, but the taxi driver thought it was real.
Okay.
And slowed the cab down and said to the woman out of the corner of his mouth, "Do you want me to help?" And so on. And it gave them such a complicated situation to deal with then, as you can imagine. But I thought that was very interesting, that something that was being filmed was actually thought to be real. So it was like a self-created piece of invisible theatre that was not meant to happen.
Yes. Excuse me. Yeah, invisible theatre. It for me, it's a great technique, and it's great fun to do. It can be very powerful. There's also an element of danger as well, depending on what you're doing, because I do also know of people that have practiced invisible theatre, but they've taken it one step too far. They've taken it to the cliff edge, so to speak, and the police have got involved and they've been arrested as well. So
yes, and there was one group, colleagues of mine in Northern Ireland, who staged a piece of invisible theatre in a supermarket, and because all the customers got so outraged about it, the supermarket banned these actors from going into the supermarket again.
Okay. Wow.
But again, we're back to let's pretend, aren't we?
Indeed. Let's
And
pretend.
do we keep the let's pretend world separate from the everyday world? Or do we see what happens when they overlap?
Cool. Right. Well, I think we might have come towards a natural end of today's episode. But let's end with something that we always try to do. If you're feeling the blues, if you're feeling a bit down, or you just want, to change your thought processes or your feeling with a playful activity. So, Sue, have you got a playful activity for our viewers today?
Well, I hope that everyone has perhaps got on their bedroom shelf a set of nesting dolls. And
often called Russian dolls, right?
Yes, something
one inside another.
Sometimes called babushka, sometimes called matryoshka. There's lots of names for them. But I've been researching blank ones because I thought, not just having ones that depict something. Why not have blank ones that people can colour in themselves?
Yeah.
So I'm encouraging everybody to have a set of blank Russian dolls and a set of felt pens, and create what you want with them. What's inside or inside or inside.
Love that. And I mean, they're quite difficult actually to get blank Russian dolls, as I'll call them. Apart from in Russia, I've seen them in Russia. I've traveled to Russia
You
a
can
few
now get
times.
them on the internet.
Oh, you can. Right. Okay.
Yes. I think they're a fairly recent acquisition, but I've ordered some sets for the conference.
Mm. Okay, well, my suggestion this week is sort of linked to this and also what we were talking about, subversive play as well, is just a way of kind of changing a mindset and playing with things. Just get a piece of paper and a pen and draw anything, an object, a person, an animal, whatever. Draw something, draw it badly. All right. So, you're not trying to get perfect art, but, make it look crazy or make it just look bad. Maybe draw it, if you're right-handed, draw it with your left hand or vice versa. And then name it as something else. So it's not even the thing that you've drawn. And I don't know, that does something to the mind. And yeah, subverting play. So you're trying out drawing. You draw something deliberately badly, so you're not looking for perfection. And yeah, just a way to relax yourself. Yeah, yeah. Okay, before we finish, any last any last minute things you want to say on play for our viewers?
Yes, I think it's all very well there being all these newspaper headlines about education and play and children. But if we want things to change, we've got to do something ourselves and respond to an article, write to MPs, write to the Education Secretary, whatever. I think we mustn't lapse into not having a voice anymore. We need to remember we have got a voice. Let's use it to support children with special needs.
Absolutely, yeah. And following on from that, if you want to write in a playful way, a technique I've used before when dealing with difficult people, again, I won't mention any names, but I have used a technique successfully before where I was getting such negative correspondence with a particular individual that I started writing in poetry. All my replies were in poetry. So whatever they wrote to me, I wrote back in poetry. And it only took 2 poems before they stopped being nasty, mean, and I was stopping getting any of this horrible correspondence. So that worked really well, and it felt really good for me as well to write in poetry. So a playful way. Okay, well, that is Play Absolutely podcast this week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps the algorithm. Before we finish, I will end by saying, don't forget to play.
Keep playing.
Absolutely. Okay, bye for now.
Bye.